Oh my goodness, there it goes. It was on mute, Gary. It was on mute, Gary.
So they didn't catch any of my important stuff.
No, we're gonna have to redo some of that, Gary. Okay, just a minute. Let's do the intro.
How much wood could you chop if you chopped wood? Why don't you ask the wood enthusiasts?
Hi, this is Larry Woodstone. Welcome to the next episode of Wood Enthusiasts, our new podcast. We're really excited, so excited. Oh my goodness. We have Gary here with us here in studio.
Hello.
And this is interesting. Gary. To be in studio, we actually wanted to change it up. Me and Gary have been talking a little bit about getting more on the streets. Gary's extremely streetwise.
I like to take it to the streets.
And that's what you always say. Gary always says, I want to take it to the streets. And Gary's very streetwise. He's very, very streetwise. And he said, what don't we do tonight? Why don't we bring the crew down to Home Depot? So I don't know. I'm not going to say what day it is because it doesn't matter depending on when you're listening, but it's 11:14 p.m. It's nearing, excuse me. It's nearing midnight. And Gary said, let's go down to Home Depot. At night, they have all their wood. They have their lumber. It's piled. And there's piles of it. And we're in the back lot because this kind of gets us into into a place where we feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. And like you always say, Gary, and Gary says this all the time, he says, I'm most comfortable when I'm around, piles of wood.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Don't you always say that, Gary?
I do.
That's something Gary's always said. He always says, I'm most comfortable when I'm around piles of wood. And I really appreciate that about Gary.
I do.
Yeah. So we wanted to have a show tonight because there's some. First off, I think it needs to be said. It needs to be noted that we haven't been around for the last few weeks. It's been quiet.
We've been busy.
Yeah, we haven't exactly had time as a community, as kind of like unofficial presidents of the community, to sit down and really discuss some of these issues and some of the current issues that are happening. I'm just giving my shoulder a bit of a scratch here, and we haven't really had the opportunity to do that. So we're doing it now. We're going to sit down, and me and Gary, we're up hunting. We're up hunting up in Muskoka near Gary's place.
Yes, and we're also in the middle of bark season.
Oh my goodness, we're just talking to someone. We joined Jason Marshall on his podcast. We don't have cookies. We joined him on his podcast, and we're kind of explaining. Gary, why don't you say what we were explaining?
We were explaining a lot of things.
Yeah, that's right. We were explaining a lot of things, and that's what's so special about it. That we were able to talk to Jason and kind of bring him into the community a little bit more. You'll hear I've got a bit of a tickle, Gary. I've got a bit of a tickle in my throat.
And scratch it. Here.
It causes me to... Oh, Gary, stop it. You know what I mean. It's an expression, Gary. Oh, my goodness, Gary. It's an expression. Oh, my goodness. You're always getting me off my game with your jokes. You always do all the Gary, off camera and off microphone, Gary's got a lot of jokes. And actually, he's known as probably one of the funniest people in the world.
That's correct.
We've used the scientific method.
I tell my jokes sitting down.
Sometimes, the definition of science, if you look up Google, if you Google define science, it's observable and measurable. And the people that like evolution can't observe or measure anything.
That's correct.
They say it's a science. They don't use the word theory. They say it's a science.
Speaking of science.
Hey, Gary, I got a question for you. When's the last time you observed or measured something billions of years ago?
That's a good point.
That's never happened, Gary.
No.
That's not observable. It's not measurable. So that's on a science.
Can you finish this for me, Larry? I before E.
Except after C.
Disproved by science.
That's in the word itself, the way it's spelled.
That's correct.
So that you're using science, but it's observable and measurable.
That's right.
I'm observing it and I'm measuring. I'm writing it down. I can observe it. Yeah. So what I was saying before I got into the whole evolution tidbit, what I was trying to say here, when it comes to science, we've used some scientific tools in the same way evolution does. So we didn't observe it, we didn't measure it, but we came to the conclusion that Gary's probably in the top 6 of the funniest people in the world. Mm-hmm. And you can tell by his candor. I know he's here right now beside me, and I just know how wise he is. But what surprises people when they meet him on the streets is how funny he is. He's a lot like Tom Cruise. When you see Tom Cruise, and he's a midget. He's like 3'2", 3'4". I think he's in between. Maybe he's 3'3", and it surprises you. It's something you didn't expect. And Gary's a lot like that. It's something you didn't expect. So Gary's been making up jokes, and he's been writing. Gary, you've been writing jokes for years and years and years and years and years. Something our audience doesn't know, and you've been wanting to tell this joke about bark.
That's right. Because
it's bark season, and in the celebration of bark season, I think you had a joke you wanted to tell people.
I did. Hey, Larry, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it.
Thank you guys so much. Let's just cut to a quick commercial break. We have a really exciting product, and I know, Gary, you love this product. Let's go right to that.
Birch. It's known for its bark and known as a tree.
Okay, thank you. Welcome back. What a wonderful product. What a wonderful surprise. Gary, it constantly surprises me when we get these sponsors. I mean, there's, needless to say, they're clamoring. We have some of the biggest products in the world clamoring at our doors.
Since the show has started, we're getting...
It's exploding.
I've gotten 2 emails.
Gary's gotten, 2 emails just today. Just today.
That's right. Nance has to read them.
Well, yeah, because Bernie sends you emails for Nance.
That's right.
So they were actually from Bernie, my wife.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, those were just emails. We're trying to arrange a potluck dinner with some of our friends, some of the friends in the wood community, wood enthusiast community. But Gary, I wanted to tell you a joke. Thanks for bringing some of your humor to the table. I want to tell you my knock joke, Gary.
Okay.
Knock.
Come in.
Thank you, Gary. Come on over for dinner.
Will do.
That's one of those. It's kind of one of those funny jokes where you say "come in" and it's not what you expect. Okay. We did want to discuss. There's kind of a pink elephant in the room, Gary, and you know that.
It's more blue.
You know who's not here.
It's a man.
You know who's not here, Gary.
I do. And I'm actually kind of happy about it.
You are and you aren't, Gary, because, as you always say, and you know how I always say, I always say we just have to let people filter through the woods. Mm-hmm. It's kind of an expression I've been using for years and years. And I know that Glen is going through a lot of transitions. Mr. Glen Clutterbuck, he's ghosted us.
Yes,
he's ghosted us, and that's a term.
I'm not upset about that.
We're right now. We're in Gary's enclave, Gary's Buick enclave. We're actually in Gary's Buick enclave right now.
2012.
It's a 2012. We're actually in Gary's Gary's Buick enclave right now. It's a 2012
with wood paneling.
It's wood. Yeah, it's got plenty of wood paneling. And we were talking about the reason that Glen has ghosted us. And he's, in a way, he's turned off his communication with us because he's pretty upset about some of the things that have been happening in the community. Mm-hmm. And the last time I've talked to Glen, Gary, and you know this, mm-hmm. The last time I talked to Glen, he's thinking about kind of starting his own venture. And, I'm very supportive of Glen. I think Glen's a wonderful young guy. He's got lots of passion for something that we struggle with. It's a bit of an odd proclivity. And, he's got a real passion for watering adult trees. And that's something that, Gary, you've just struggled to understand.
I'm okay if he breaks off because that is absolutely ridiculous.
We're not. I don't want to talk about him breaking off. I want to keep him in the community because he's so important, and his family is so important to our community.
No. When you have a tree that has a dead branch, you cut it off. And he's
that's scripture. In my opinion. That feels like scripture.
Oh yes, that's correct.
I feel, when I hear that, Gary, there's a weight to it. There's kind of there's a sense of responsibility, isn't there, Gary?
That's right. And we need to do that.
But that's not where I am because I want to continue to bring Glen into the fold because it's important to me. Glen's a wonderful guy and his parents, have deep pockets, but I think it's important that he continues to be with us. And, this is kind of a call out. This is kind of a call out to Glen. If you're out there, Glen, and you're listening, and believe me, you and 100,000 other people are listening, and I know that. I want you to give us a call, maybe to give us a text. My cell. I can't say it here. It's my personal cell. I don't give it out to many people, Gary. I'm not going to give it out on the podcast. But you also have Gary's text.
Nope.
He does. I gave him your text number. I gave him your text number to text you if you wanted to.
Nope.
Because he wanted to go to the Walnut Convention, and I said he had to call you.
Nope.
So, as I was mentioning, and this is something it's fairly significant for us, is to maintain our community just as it is. And I want Glen to know that we're here for Glen. And I'd like to see him come back. Okay? I'd like to see him come back. So, Glen, if you're out there, I know you've ghosted us. Kind of cut off all communication, and we'd like to connect with you. We've actually talked to your dad today. We went to pick up some.
He's a wonderful man.
Yeah, we stopped to pick up a little funding check, and he, he's not sure where Glenn is either. He's kind of dipped off the scene, as they say. And Gary, that actually brings me back to something we talked about. Me and Gary went out for some snacks.
We did.
Sometimes when we meet up for podcasts, we tell the production crew, go ahead, go set up the whole, the business side of things, the technical side, and we're gonna go get some snacks. So me and Gary, he got some nachos.
Well, after a workout, I have to.
Yeah, after Gary works out, he likes to fill up with some nachos.
That's right.
And Gary, what did you say? It's something I found quite poignant.
I did. I was talking about
your nachos.
Well, I just got a large stack of nachos, and on top of the nachos, I had some liquid cheese. On the liquid cheese, it was nicely placed lettuce, and on the lettuce, we had some olives, and on the olives, I had a little bit of jalapeno peppers. I call them jalapenos.
You've always said that, Gary.
That's right.
You always say that.
That's
it always makes me laugh when we're going out for snacks and you say that.
That's right. Just like quesadillas.
Yeah, quesadillas. That's right.
And on top of the jalapenos, I had shredded cheese, and on top of that, it was a nice grazing of tomatoes, and on top of that, I had just a little fine shaving of green onion, and
see, and that's that struck me in a way that, I think our audience is they're coming along with us here, and they're saying, wow. When I heard it, Gary, the first time you said it, you saw me. Gary was there, and he, I had to kind of sit back I was on a bar stool, and I had to sit back, and I went to lean back, and I almost fell off the chair because there's no back to the chair. It's a bar stool.
Yep,
and Gary put his hand out, and he said, whoa, hold on, slow down, stop, wait, take pause, put the brakes on it. Listen, Larry, slow down, breathe, calm down, and just stop. That's what you said, Gary. You said, just stop. And after you kind of listed, you listed the weight, kind of the weight of our situation, really, and kind of some of the stuff our community is going through. And when you broke it down like that, and you looked at your nachos, and you kind of looked at how things were layered, I said, wow. And
multi-layered.
And it was something. It was crucial, and that's what I said. That's what I said. And actually, the waiter came by and he said, "What's crucial?" And we talked to him about it. And you kind of repeated your sentiment. And he was, just aghast. And he needed a few minutes. He actually he went and sat at the booth next door and just kind of sat there quietly and he was thinking about it. And that's kind of the thing that I know. I mean, I've said it kind of too many times to count about your wisdom.
Once, you said it 1,000 times.
That's exactly it, and that's what I mean. And Gary, even lines like that, Gary, kind of brings out your wisdom. And I've said it 1,000 times, and I'll say it again because it's worth saying that moments like that, Gary, are the reason that you and me are on the show. I originally had this podcast, and I said I'm going to do this. I'm going to stop the nonsense, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it right.
We pushed our community.
Well, I've taken it. That's exactly it. And that's what I said. That's what I said to Mr. Clutterbucks. And I haven't even talked to him since. But I said, this is the reason that Gary's on the show. This is the reason that Gary's on the show. Because when when the mics are off, we're still making change. We're still kind of thinking. We're always thinking about what's next. We're always thinking about, and like you said, what in life is our next nacho layer? What's the next layer? What's the next, and what I said, Gary, I said, how about the little blop of, salsa on the side? That's a little bit of my hot and spicy picante, something that makes me spicy. And then you said, Larry, and then right beside that is a little sour cream, something to dull that spice, something to bring you back. And I was just, I'm still floored. And probably the favorite part, and I know we both talked about this, was that those nachos came out on an oak charcuterie board.
That's right. Beautiful.
Isn't that something else, Gary? Gary, isn't that something else?
It's classy.
Isn't that something else, Gary?
Well, how I know that we're making a change here is we're getting lots of emails from our viewers.
Yeah, we're getting loads of emails.
We are. And questions.
Yeah. And I think that's important. Let's just take a commercial break. I think there's... I don't like taking these moments and making them so heavy that people aren't enjoying themselves, but I think also there's always time and there's always space to let people feel the weight of this burden and remind them of what's true. There's only one truth.
That's right.
Gary, in the past, we've had conversations with people. I know Gary likes to go out on the streets.
That's right.
Gary has a mahogany box, and he goes down to the streets and he just preaches truth. And sometimes people will say, this is my truth, and this is my truth, and this is my truth. And we had this conversation.
That in November, actually.
He's doing that in November in Southwold.
That's right.
Southwold, Ontario. Right. And Gary, in the past, we've had the conversation about, binary and non-binary, but Gary has always stuck with the fact that there's one truth.
That's right.
And I said, Gary, some people can have their own truth. And he said, if that's true, what if my next neighbor wants to come out and punch you in the face? Mm-hmm. Exactly. Can they do that? And I miffed, I was miffed. And I said, of course not. That's not right. And he says, well, it's not right. It's not right for you, but is it right for them?
Mm. That's
right. What you were saying, Gary, is that there's one truth created by, one truth designer.
That's right.
And when Gary, and you're very poignant about this, and it's very moving. It's very moving. When you lay out truths like that and you say, there's no such thing as your truth and 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 Brian's truth and Bob's truth and Glenn's truth, and Shelley's truth and Lisa's truth and Stephanie's truth. There's no such thing. There's one truth.
That's right.
And we all can either go towards the truth or fall away from the truth.
Absolutely.
So when you say, hardwood's hardwood, then it's a hardwood. Because that's
correct.
And that's what you've been saying all along.
That's right.
So like I was saying, you're going out, you're going out on the streets. And something that's always floored me is when you come up with, things like this nacho play, which we're still talking about, we're kind of bringing it back full circle here. There's a truth there that I can't argue. And Gary, I'm going to be completely honest. I don't want to argue it.
I appreciate that.
So let's take a commercial break. Let's just take a moment and let's just, reel that in, and we'll be right back.
Hemlocks, also called nanahuya in Swahili, which means leaf-bearing tree.
Taking it to the streets.
Take it to... Okay, Gary, you ready? Let's do this. Okay, so we are back, and we are back with a really exciting fact that Gary had, that Gary wanted to tell us about shade.
Yes, this is also, I would like to call it a wood service announcement.
A WSA.
A WSA. If you want to reduce your energy bills by 25%, I highly recommend planting trees or shrubs near your place of residence. It does provide shade, which then lowers your consumption of energy through air conditioning.
Incredible. That's an incredible statistic.
Well,
25%.
Energy is high because of government. That's
right. Government taxes.
That's right.
So you would say it's kind of funny because when I hear that stat, I love the stat. I love the statistics. You're obviously your thing. You're full of wisdom and you're very wise. But I hear you say you need to toss some shade, and it's funny because that's an expression in the youth culture. They say don't. They say things like don't you toss your shade at me. Mr. Gilbo. They'll say hey Mr. Rubiard, don't toss shade. Or Lisa, Lisa will say, hey, Beverly, don't toss shade at me. That's an expression, Gary. What's interesting? It's a negative expression.
That's right. Absolutely.
That's seen as a negative expression, but what you're trying to say is shade's a positive thing.
Well, if you want to pay more money, then toss.
You toss some shade.
Yeah.
But in this way, what you're saying is, grow some trees, plant some trees.
That's right.
hey guys and girls out there, if you're listening, and I know you are, I can see the numbers. I'm literally looking at the stats as we speak, and there's, the numbers are insane. Plant trees, an acorn is,
a tree in a nutshell, actually.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So plant the trees.
That's right.
Save some hydro. If you're trying, those little nerds out there trying to save the world, those little geeks and nerds, stupid twerps out there trying to save the world from global warming. Well, hey, let me tell you something. Plant a tree.
Yeah. How hard is it?
Plant some trees. Glenn will come by and he'll water them for you, for Pete's sakes, if you want him to. Just give him your address. The guy will come over there with buckets of water, distilled water. He spends years and years and years distilling this water. He's got barrels. Mm-hmm. You've seen his farm. He's got barrels and barrels of distilled water. He'll come over there and water your stupid acorns for you. Plant some trees.
Dig a hole.
This isn't science. This isn't rocket science. This is science, actually. It's observable and measurable. This is science. Yes. This is science.
It's also science that if you hang
What science?
This fact.
Oh, okay.
If you hang a bird tree or a birdhouse on a tree, the birdhouse will not move as the tree grows.
What if it's really windy, Gary?
You tie it down.
Yeah, but it's going to move in the wind. I don't think that's what you're saying. I think you're saying it's going to stay at the same elevation. It's not going to go up as the tree goes up.
That's correct.
The branch will stay hovering. If it's 6, so when you hang it, if it's 6 feet and the tree grows up another 20 feet, it's going to stay at that 6-foot mark.
6 feet.
That's science.
Correct. That's science.
That's observable and measurable. That's
right.
the definition of science, Gary.
That's correct.
You know what's not the definition of science? Believing something without any proof, just a theory. That's called faith. There's a lot of different faiths in this world. Some people have faith in things, where nothing creates something, like evolution. Some people have faith in things where, someone creates everything.
That's correct.
That's 2 different types of faith. 2 different religions, really, isn't it, Gary?
You got to have faith.
Oh, there's a song about that, Gary.
Is there?
Oh, there's a song about that, Gary. I can't think. Are we allowed to play songs that are professional songs, Gary?
I don't know.
Can you ask? What are you doing?
It's hurting. Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Gary's undoing his belt. We had some snacks and we're sitting in Gary's Buick Enclave and he says his belt is too tight because he probably had a little bit too many snacks.
Yeah.
It smells in here too a little bit. So for you guys that don't know Gary, I mean, he's chock full of wisdom, and when I say that, I don't just mean it, sparingly. I mean, this guy's got wisdom out of the wazoo. I don't even know what a wazoo is, but I think that's an expression. So Gary just says this right at the blue. Tell me what you said, Gary, about pine trees.
Pine trees are found on 7 out of the 8 continents.
And Gary, tell me what continent it's not found on.
The Antarctica.
Oh my goodness, what a resilient tree. Mm-hmm. I can't even breathe when I hear that kind of fact, Gary.
I know.
What a resilient tree.
Absolutely.
There's a resiliency, isn't there, Gary?
No, oh, for sure.
There's a resiliency.
Yep. And their cones can be female or male.
Gary, can I ask you a question about that, Gary?
Yes.
When you say their cones can be either female or male, why can't it grow in Antarctica? What does that mean?
It is because it is too cold.
Desolate.
Desolate.
It's too cold. It's the most resilient tree in the world.
That's correct.
And Gary, you know that I've said
in the Arctic.
It's in the Arctic. Well, I used to live in the Arctic. A lot of people that don't know this don't know that I used to live in the Yukon, and I made some trips past the Arctic Circle, and it was.
Did you see some pine?
I did. And what they have there, they actually have an interesting tree. It's called black spruce. And if you guys have never seen it, it's probably one of the most. It's very haunting. It's one of the most ugliest, but also at the same time one of the most beautiful trees. And as we release this, I'm actually in the comments. I'm going to release this on Twitter. This,
okay.
This, and I'm going to put in the comments a couple pictures that I took of those black spruce, and they're beautiful trees. Very haunting, very haunting, beautiful trees. And I'm going to post some of those pictures so people can see what we're talking about, because it's nice to have a visual, isn't it, Gary?
Always.
It's always nice to have a visual.
Unless you can't.
But that fact floors me. I mean, we're talking about wood in a real serious way here.
That's correct.
We're talking about wood in a real serious way here. I want to take a little pause, but it's not for a commercial break. As you guys know, Reverend Josh has been with us for a long time, and he's I'd be worried to say he's filling in Glenn's gap, but well, Glenn's not here.
I'd be very happy if you did.
Well, you just absolutely love Mr.
Yep.
Friend. But Glenn's not really around lately. Gary and I have asked Josh kind of to step up and to help us out. And one of the things that moved people the most, and we had the most comments about it, was Josh's Reverend Josh's soliloquies. Some poems and some stories.
I teared up over those so many times.
I mean, I've listened to that one probably 300 times.
It's on replay.
It's on repeat.
Right.
And I just say, oh my goodness, Reverend Friend, Mr. Josh, this is some mind. It's anyways. I've known Josh for years and years and years and years. And sometimes I don't call him, hey Gary, sometimes I don't call him Reverend Josh because I knew him before he was a reverend. Josh used to live with me in an apartment in London, Ontario. We went to school together.
He was always a reverend, was he?
Let me tell you a true story.
Oh.
Let me tell you a true story. When I was in the University of Western Ontario, I took animal psychology because I was in social work, and one of the courses I took was animal psychology. And this is a true story, Gary. Okay. Look at me, Gary. This is a true story.
Yep.
This is a true story. And Josh was living with us at the time. He wasn't in school, you see. He was in London, and we were singing. We toured. We sang in a group called Day of Rest, and it was in a 6-part a cappella group. And Josh was our bassist, and you can tell by his voice he's our bassist. So I said, I just can't stand this class. I never go to the classes. The exam's coming. I don't have a clue. I don't have a shoot clue what's going on in this, in this joint. I don't know what this whole program's about. I don't know anything about it. Animal psychology sounds like a bunch of nonsense. Sounds like a bunch of witchcraft. Mm-hmm. Nobody's talking to animals. It's stupid. It's just stupid. What's the point of learning this? But my dad signed me up for it, so I was just in it anyways. And I said, Josh said, when I was in Tennessee, because he came from the States, he said, I took that class and I know everything about it. And I said, well, I've never even attended this stupid class. Why don't you just go and say you're me and write the exam? He said, that's fine. I'll do it. So he went and wrote the exam for me. That's a true story.
Really?
That's a true story. That's a true
Wow.
story. And Gary, listen to this part. And you know what? My dad doesn't know this. This is the first time he's hearing it. And I'll tell you right now, Dad, I know you listen to my podcast. This is a true story. And you're ashamed of me right now in this moment. I'll tell you that right now because this is ridiculous. You wouldn't believe what Mark he got. He got 34%. That guy's he's class act, but he was a real idiot that day. That guy didn't have a clue anything about animal psychology. That guy got me 34%. So I made a bit of a fib there, and I went and talked to the professor. And I said, I'm struggling. I'm struggling this year, and I just straight up lied, and they canceled the course, and I didn't even hit my record. So that was a bit of a note, but they never even see me before. He goes and takes my exam, says he's a professional, he gets 34%. I was just talking to, Reverend Friend this the other day, and we both shook our heads because we've grown up a lot since, Gary.
Oh, absolutely.
We've grown up a lot since.
And where is he from originally?
He was down from Texas, Tennessee, something or other like that. He's from the States,
And you know what, Larry? You're the only 10 I see.
Oh, there's another. See, that's one of those jokes. Is that one of those jokes, Gary?
Yeah.
Is that one of those jokes you making?
Yeah.
See, that's a top 6 joke.
Thank you.
10 I see. And I said Tennessee, and Gary said, you're the only 10 I see. That's kind of like a rating scale. So if you're like rating someone on 1 to 10, you're saying, Gary says, I'm a 10. And then he uses the words I see, and he says, you're the only 10 I see. Gary, that's the best joke I've ever heard. Oh my goodness. We're going to have to edit some of this out. It's very unprofessional. It's very unprofessional if I'm laughing, but this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. That's one of the best jokes I've heard, Gary, in a long time. I was trying to hold it in, Gary. I was trying to be very professional on the set, Gary. And then when you told that joke, I was trying to hold it in. But I knew Lisa. She doesn't get any of your jokes. Lisa's a real idiot. She doesn't get any of your jokes, so I was trying to explain it, Gary. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, Gary. Okay. Hey, guy. Okay.
We have too much fun.
Paul, get us back on set, Paul. Plug us back in. Oh, Paul, plug us back in. Gary, tell him to plug us back in.
You can go ahead. Plug. Yeah, we're good now.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, that's another one of Gary's great jokes. It's a great joke. He's got my asthma sparking up. Gary's got my asthma sparking up.
Speaking of asthma, I have a wood service announcement for everyone out there.
Gary's got my asthma sparking back up with the way he's talking, making all these ridiculous jokes.
May I give my announcement?
Yeah, Gary, please.
During the wintertime, residential wood smoke is a main contributor to fine particle pollution and is responsible for poor air quality days in many areas.
Sometimes, Gary, I don't even know what any of that means.
Well, I disagree with that one, and I do believe our writers have sent that over to us because nothing is polluted by trees.
I don't even know what that means, Gary. So we got to bring this back, Gary, and you know that I love your wood service announcements, and sometimes you're so wise that I don't even understand some of them. But what I want to get back to is Reverend Friend has connected with us, and he sent us a lot of stuff, and I want to play a little bit for us. So just have a listen here. Here's another incredible moment, and we're just calling this Moments with Reverend Friend.
Mulberry. You have towered here, leaning half over the wall, all my awareness, years before I knew what silkworm was or China elf felt. Your berries, plump under my feet, tracked your purple all over my grandmother's carpet. A sapling, planted by some sea captain to make shade for a future. This winter you lost one of your long, low branches to a backed-up car, and the old woman who has known you all her life wept at the split wood. Your bark is wrinkled more deeply than any face. You live so slowly. Do our voices sound to you like the fluttering of paper moth wings? Do we seem rootless, holding fast to the anchor of the saddest things? Craig Arnold, Mulberry.
Wow. let's take a moment here.
That was amazing.
Sometimes, Gary, and you know this, Gary, you know this about me, I get overwhelmed.
Well, I like this show because you go from such highs of laughter like we just had to real moments of reflection like this
And I
moment.
feel like Glenn's really missing out on these opportunities because this is something, me and Glenn are friends. And you know that, Gary. And you and Glenn are friends.
Well,
you and Glenn are very close friends, Gary.
Yeah, well.
And it's moments like these that I just think, there's so much value. And, it actually goes a lot back to your nacho plate.
That's right.
When you talk with the layers.
That's right.
It goes back to the layers. And on the same note, Gary, you and me were talking earlier about using the Windows product on our computers. And I said, Gary, I don't have Windows on my computer because, I use an Apple.
Well, that's
I use
right.
a Macintosh. I have a MacBook Pro. And I have it right here on my lap. We're cooking the books here with the MacBook Pro. And Gary says, well, Gary uses Windows. And tell him, Gary, why you said you use Windows.
Well, windows are generally made from sturdy wood on their frames.
And Gary, I said to you, well, it's 2018. That's not the facts. And I know Gary builds all his own house. Every house Gary's ever had, he's built.
That's correct.
Any house that Gary's ever lived in, any vacation. When Gary goes on vacation with his wife. They go on vacation to Hawaii. He goes 3 months earlier and he builds a house.
That's right.
He buys a small plot of land, builds a house. They go on vacation.
Construction nowadays is terrible.
It's outlandish, is what you say.
That's correct.
So he whips something up. They have vacation for a week and he comes home. But what Gary doesn't know is when we're here at Home Depot, for example, and you go inside of there, and most of the windows, there's not going to be any wood in there. There's not going to be a lot of wood in there.
And I wouldn't buy it.
There's not going to be a lot of wood in there.
But that's why I have a Windows computer.
But that's why I use an Apple, because there's an Apple tree. Macintosh.
That's fair.
Macintosh and Apple. So, Gary, thank you, Josh. Thank you, Mr. Friend. We're so blown.
You.
We're so floored. We're so floored by your talents and your skills and your ability just to lift us up and to also make us feel held, warm.
He really does lift us up where we belong.
There's a song. What's the song, Gary? How's it go, Gary?
I don't know.
You lift us up where we belong.
Oh, I love when you sing.
You lift us up where we belong. Gary, we're having some emails. I have a live chat here, and there's a live feed here, and people are asking me. People are saying right here, I have a live chat, and they said, we need some updates on the community. So we're gonna do a few updates on the community, Gary. So we already talked about Glenn. We haven't heard from Glenn from weeks. He's ghosted us. We're hoping we're going to turn that around. But I did want to say, Gary, and I'm walking on thin ice here.
Okay.
I'm walking on thin ice here, Gary.
Careful.
I'm walking on thin ice here, Gary. What I'm going to say is I got an email from Jimmy Garund.
Why? Okay.
And, before we go any further, I'm just going to remind you that Paul still works for us.
Why
Paul
are
still
you
works for us, Gary.
Yep.
Paul still works for us, and you know that.
Paul is a great man.
Well, Paul's not a great man.
He is.
Paul's not a great man.
Okay.
He's not even a great boy. He's barely a child,
okay.
Gary. But Jimmy Garund is thinking about coming on the show. And I said that I would talk to you out of respect, out of the deep respect that I have for you, Gary. I would talk to you.
You can do what you want, and that will not affect the way that I see you. But Jimmy
Garund.
Jimmy Garund is a plastics man through and through. And I don't want to be on the same show as him.
Well,
so.
If it comes to me choosing between Gary and Jimmy Garund, I'm always going to choose Gary Gilbert. We're not talking, this isn't science. This isn't hard science here.
Maybe you could bring him on.
Oh, that's an interesting.
I won't be on, but you can bring him on.
We're not going to do, Gary, just stop it, Gary. Just stop it, Gary. I just said I got an email from Gary. I haven't made any decisions.
Okay.
It's not my place to make a decision anyways, Gary.
Okay, then why would you bring it up on the show?
We're just going to... It's not on the show. This is just side talk. They're going to edit this out, Gary.
Okay. All right.
Well, we're talking about community news that nobody knows.
Okay.
I said we got some emails, and I wanted to talk about some of these items. Jimmy just wants to come on the show. He says now that we're pretty famous, he wants to get a little fame himself. That's what he said.
Yeah, that sounds like Jimmy. That's all he wants.
He just wants a little fame and notoriety, Gary.
He was with Martha.
Think that's a big deal.
Him and Martha.
Oh, Martha can rot. Don't talk about Martha. And you know that, Gary. Stop it. Okay, let's get back on the show. Guys, let's bring us back on the air. Cut us. I don't know where we cut off. Me and Gary just bring us back in.
Sorry.
we talked about Gary as part of the community. You're going to be bringing the message to the streets in Southwold, Ontario.
That's right.
And we had an email where people wanted to know. We have, like I said earlier, we have people from all over the world.
Yep.
And people were wondering. They said, they said to me, tell us a little bit more about Canada. We don't know much about Canada, so they wanted to know where we're from and some of the things about our country and some details. Details, Gary.
Okay.
So we're just going to kind of go back and forth and give some significant details about Canada and where we're from. So I'm going to start with beavers.
Yeah. Between me and Bracebridge, we have little towns Beatrice, Falkenberg, and Bracebridge.
The big silver nickel in Sudbury.
Yeah. CN Tower.
Southwold, Ontario.
Oh, well, that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
We have Algonquin Park,
Aspen, pine,
spruce,
fir, walnut, hemlock.
Absolutely.
That's one too. The 401. There's a main highway, an artery. It's kind of an artery. One of the main highways in Ontario is the 401.
Yeah.
Highway 11's a big one.
Yep. Muskoka Bible Conference.
The Trans-Canada Highway goes all the way across the country.
Mm-hmm.
Manitoba. That's one of the provinces.
Yeah, but our Prime Minister actually is thinking of changing that.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about our Prime Minister on the show, Gary.
Okay. To Peopletoba.
Peopletoba. That's because he doesn't like the word man.
That's correct.
He says that's a sexist word, and there's not just a man. So Manitoba, he wants to change it to Peopletoba.
We have Fisher Folk.
Fisher folks instead of fishermen. There's trucks. We have trucks.
We do.
And posts. There's a lot of posts.
Grass.
Anyways, that's just a brief update.
Maple syrup.
Maple syrup. We're going to come back to some more Canadian
Bacon.
things. Bacon, actually specifically.
Bags of milk.
Yeah, that's very interesting. We actually have bags of milk. We don't use gallons in Ontario.
correct.
We don't have gallons of milk. We have bags of milk. If people don't know what that means, they need to Google Canadian bagged milk and have a look what that is. We have our own containers. We have our own milk containers.
Jennifer.
Yeah, we have. It's a very common name. Jennifer's a very common name where we live.
Yep.
So that's kind
Jonathan.
Is there any other names, Gary? Gary, is there any? This seems very non-specific, Gary. I mean, I don't know about you, but I think in Australia and Austria and Katabacar and the Falkland Islands, I think they've got some Jonathans, Gary. Gary's just making one of his jokes again, Paul. Hey, Steph, did you hear Gary's joke? He's throwing out names now, and we're trying to talk about Canada things. He said Jennifer first. I was trying to hold it off.
Well, here's some interesting stuff is that we have Woodstock.
He's probably going to say David, one of the most famous Jewish names, King David. And then all the Israelites are all named David. Okay, bring us back on set, guys.
And London.
Back on set. Let's bring us back. Guys, he's still dropping names. Okay, let's bring us back on set here. Anyways, this has been a lot. There's a burden here.
Celine Dion.
Thank you guys so much for bringing us on. Shania Twain. Shania Twain's another singer. She's another singer. Arcade Fire is
Bryan Adams.
Bryan Adams. It's a big one. I just want to say this. I want to say this with all sincerity. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, because if you guys aren't, you're not being very kind. And Canadians are very kind. Mm-hmm. So go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. And if you don't know what our YouTube channel is, go to youtube.com and in the search bar type Wood Enthusiasts. And when you type that in, you'll see us right at the top. We have a channel, and we'd love you to follow along some of our videos. And if you guys, this is a podcast, so if you guys can follow our podcast, because that's very significant to us. So please, if you're on, iTunes, if you're on, Podbean, if you're on Google, whatever it is, whatever your source is, Spotify, just go to follow. We just really appreciate it, wouldn't we, Gary?
Yes. We need the message.
And I feel like we're there. But this has been a very intense, very heavy, very solemn episode today. And Gary's been trying to lighten the mood by making some jokes, and they've just been cracking. Just like it's kind of, you guys kind of get a shot of what Gary's like off set and off camera.
Justin Bieber.
He's still tossing out names, Steph. Hey, you guys listen. You guys got your headphones on? He's still tossing out names. He's tossing out Canadian names. The last time he just said the name Jonathan. He just said the single name Jonathan is like, it's not like it's a Canadian thing, isn't it? Did you guys hear that? That's just Gary being Gary. He's just tossing out jokes. Thank you guys so much. Please subscribe and follow, and give a shout out, throw a comment on there. If you guys can rate us as a 5 or a 3, We don't want 3, but if that's what you honestly feel in your heart, maybe a 5 would be ideal.
We should also make a shout out to TENFED.
Yeah, I'm wearing a hat, a company called TENFED, and what happens when you buy a TENFED hat or a shirt or something like that or a bag, for every hat you buy, they will feed 10 children, which I think it's amazing. And I don't just think it's international children. I think they feed local children as well. But that's really exciting to me. I'm just, Gary, I just saw a black bear right there at the end of this driveway. And this isn't a joke. If you just put your lights on, there's a black bear right behind that hill. Just wait for a second, you're going to see it.
Oh, excellent.
And I know so people are on this, they're listening. They're not sure if I'm dead serious or not, but I just saw a black bear.
We're also accepting
I'm 100%
sponsors.
sure I just saw a black bear.
We're also
Gary.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, they can't see it. Well, Gary's doing kissy sounds at a black bear. I don't think that's ideal. But black bears are really harmless here in Canada.
Yeah, absolutely.
So give us a shout if you guys want to be a sponsor and just connect with us, okay? We're going to have to hang up here. We're actually moving. The production crew is actually walking behind us. We're moving really slowly in Gary's Buick Enclave. Okay, thanks again for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
So long.
On the next Wood Enthusiasts.
Well, I'm a wood enthusiast. I love to look and build and cut and half sniff. And if you ask me, what do I love best? Well, I'll tell you wood, 'cause I'm an enthusiast. Sycamore, oak, aspen, pine, and fir, hemlock, maple, willow, dogwood, and poplar, ash, hickory, beech, tamarack, and cedar, hawthorn, jackpine, buckeye, cherry, and birch. 'Cause I'm a wood enthusiast. I love to look and cut and build and have sniff. And if you ask me, what do I love best? Well, I'll tell you wood, 'cause I'm an enthusiast. 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 Enthusiast.